Hey guys, it's Marco again, presenting you an Arcane Mage guide for the start of the Shadowlands expansion. In this guide I'll cover almost everything you need to know about the spec. You have timestamps in video description and on video timeline, so you can skip topics that you already know or aren't interested in. Sadly, I'll again have to make two different videos, since if I merge the open and rotation with this, it would be way too long. Before we start, I'll just mention that Arcane Mages are looking decent for the start of the expansion, a true all-around spec, being good at both solo target fights and AoE. So let's get started with the most important Arcane changes. Mastery change. Now it additionally increases all other Arcane damage. This is a fun change since it will make Mastery a bit more powerful stat for Arcane Mages. Clear casting can now stack up to 3 times and causes your arcane missiles to fire 1 additional arcane missile. This change is important because now we can fish for clear cast procs before our burst periods. Arcane power is no longer on a global cooldown, praise the Lord, but its cooldown is increased from 1 minute 30 seconds to 2 minutes, but now it lasts for 15 seconds, changed from 10 seconds. Most important change happened with Arcane Barrage. Now it grants you 2% of your maximum mana per arcane charge spent. This means we got another way of regening mana. And lastly, Touch of the Magi is no longer a talent, it's a baseline ability for Arcane Mages. It's almost a brand new ability, it stores 25% of the damage dealt, and then at the end of the debuff it explodes, dealing the stored damage and reduced damage to nearby targets. Also it generates 4 arcane charges, which is very important. We only have 3 important ability changes. Alter Time made its comeback. It's a great defensive and a utility cooldown, which you will be pressing a lot to save your own life and to save your healers' mana pools. Arcane Intellect grants 5% intellect, changed from 10%, but it no longer can be casted from a scroll. So every raid wants to run at least one mage, since we bring cookies and smarties. Mirror Image has been reworked, it's no longer a talent and it's no longer a DPS cooldown. Now it's a defensive cooldown and it reduces the direct incoming damage by 20%. And each time you take direct damage, one mirror image dies. That's it for the ability changes, let's head on to talents. First row received a change in amplification. When clear cast, Arcane Missiles fires 2 additional arcane missiles, changed from 1. Other 2 talents in this row are Rule of Threes and Arcane Familiar. Rule of Threes is no longer needed since we don't have mana issues thanks to the new Arcane Barrage. So you want to go with clear casting on solo targets, while Arcane Familiar is a go-to for AoE situations, and by AoE I always mean 3+ targets. Second row got a new talent, Master of Time, and it's great. It reduces cooldown for Alter Time by 30 seconds, and when you jump back it resets your blink cooldown. Whenever your healers are struggling or you want to be on your own and say to hell with you healers, you can take this and just do your own thing, without fear of dying. Shimmer received a nerf, its recharge time has been changed from 20 to 25 seconds. And lastly, we got the good old Slipstream. This is an optional talent row, so choose whatever you need for the encounter. Slipstream and Shimmer are both good for movement, and Master of Time is the defensive of the defensives. Third row lost Mirror Image, and on its place we got Focus Magic. It's a cool talent, but it definitely isn't the one for Arcane Mages. Rune of Power received a change, it no longer has 2 stacks, now it only has 1 stack. But each time you use Arcane Power, bam, you get a Rune of Power under yourself. The only funny thing is that Rune of Power lasts for 12 seconds, while Arcane Power lasts for 15 seconds, which brings some funny situations. Nevertheless, this is going to be a go-to talent for you, since Burst is the name of Arcane. And the last talent in this row is the good old Incanter's Flow, which offers consistent damage, and we don't really want that. Fourth talent row. We have another new talent, Arcane Echo. And I actually love this talent. It has a nice effect when you deal damage during your Touch of the Magi. What can I say, I'm a sucker for pretty things. But nevertheless, this is a very strong talent for solo targets, so you should take it. Supernova said goodbye to row 4 and went to row 6, and in its place we got Nether Tempest, which isn't a very good talent and we just avoid it. Lastly, we got Resonance, which got a small damage buff, and this talent is a definite go-to in AoE situations. 5th talent row didn't see any changes. We got Chrono Shift, Ice Ward, and Ring of Frost. This should be an optional talent row, but it really isn't. Chrono Shift offers slow and big move speed boost, which is just way better than pure CC. 6th row also seems some changes. Supernova went from row 4 to row 6, but it's still useless and sees no play in PvE. Arcane Orb dropped down from row 7, it had no place there, but here in row 6 it's the best talent option for all situations. The amount of burst this talent offers in AoE situations is just brutal. And it's not completely useless in solo target situations if you need to build up your arcane charges fast. The last talent in this row is Reverberate. It's the only unchanged talent and it can be used in AoE situations, but I prefer Arcane Orb. 7th and the last row still has Time Anomaly and Overpowered. Time Anomaly was a bit buffed and Overpowered was a bit nerfed, but Overpowered is still the way to go in all situations. And the new talent is Enlightened. This used to be an Azerite trait. It's a cool addition to Arcane Mage talents. It's close damage-wise on Overpowered, but not close enough. That's it for the talents, now for Covenants. The best and the only Covenant you want to pick for Arcane is Nightfey. Shifting Power just synergizes so well with the kit. We have 6 different cooldowns which are all important for Arcane Mages, and this baby just reduces them all. It makes the spec more fun and faster to play, and I'm always up for that. And another great thing with this Covenant is that all their Soulbinds are great for Arcane Mages, and you can pick whatever you want. Dreamweaver is the only one which is a bit behind. Second best Covenant in my opinion should be Necrolords, just due to insane power of 3 target cleave with Deathborn. If you ever find yourself in a 3 target cleave, this thing is going to do so much damage. But it's still not as good as the cooldown reduction. The only good Soulbind with Necrolords is Amani. I'd put both Kyrian and Ventier at rank 3 and 4 for Arcane, since they are outclassed in every aspect by Nightfey. And I don't recommend playing Arcane with these Covenants. But for the sake of numbering, I'll put Kyrians at rank 3. They have Radiant Spark ability, which is an arcane damage, which scales with your mastery. It's cool, but it's not good enough. Both Pelagos and Clea are decent Soulbind choices for Arcane. Lastly, we got Ventier with Mirrors of Torment. I really don't like this ability, especially on Arcane Mages. It does some damage and it only returns your mana. But we aren't mana hungry anymore. But on the good side, all of their Soulbinds are nicely tuned. If you want to know a bit more about these Soulbinds, I have made a video just for them, which I'll leave in the description. That's it from the Covenant specific stuff, now on to Conduits. I won't go over Endurance and Finesse Conduits in this video, since they're just matter of preference and I already covered them in my Frost Mage guide, which I'll leave a link to as well. I'll cover Potency Conduits based on which are the best ones for certain types of situations. Arcane Prodigy is the second best conduit for solo target fights, and with more targets you don't want to use it. Artifice of the Archmage isn't viable on fights with less than 3 targets. But at 3 targets it becomes the second best conduit pick, and at 4 targets it becomes the best one. Magi's Brand is the best potency conduit for fights with 1 to 3 targets. At 4 targets it's even with Artifice of the Archmage. And on 4+ targets, Magi's Brand keeps his steady second place. So have this conduit online forever. Leather Precision isn't a good conduit, and I recommend not using this one overall. All Covenant conduits are always looming in all situations as being the third best conduit, so if you don't want to change any conduits at all, you can just run this with Magi's Brand. Before we finish this topic, I must say that sim your characters with conduits, since different ranks of conduits are a thing, and will determine which one offers the most DPS. Legendary powers. I'll give you a short look on them all, in case you aren't familiar with them, and I'll just talk about the best ones. Actually, there are only 2 choices when it comes to legendary powers in Arcane Mages. Single target fight and 2 target fights, you want to go with Temporal Warp. It's the strongest legendary in those cases, and it's a legendary which is good for all mage specs. So make this one as soon as possible. And by far the best choice for AoE situations is Arcane Bombardment. The amount of damage your barrages are going to do in under 35% HP of the target is mental. Basically an execute, and it's going to be very useful in some dungeons and in the first raid, when you want to have execute burst on some mobs. Stats. Intellect is usually the best stat for arcane mages, followed by critical. Versatility is their third best stat, but it's close to critical. And our last 2 stats are mastery and haste, but they aren't too bad either. But that just means that item level is going to matter a lot, due to power of intellect. And as always, the only way to determine what is the best for you is by simming your character. And that's it for this video. I hope you guys liked it. If you have any questions or improvement suggestions, please leave them in the comment section. I'll soon make a video just about the rotation and opener. Also, did you know that only 7.4% of the people who watch me are also subscribed? So please subscribe, it's free and it will help me a lot. Thank you, and until next time, take care.